to the odds in our favor.
I actually didn't plan on making a video about the Middle-earth Shadow of games. Actually, that sounds weird. I'm not even sure what to call them. Shadow of Middle-earth games? The Middle-earth games? I'm not sure how people call these games, but I'll go with that. It sounds better. Anyway, as I was saying, I didn't plan on making a video on either Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War. I played and finished Shadow of Mordor, and it was a fun game. Nothing too special. It had its drawbacks, but it had its moments too. It's what I would call a solid 7 out of 10 game. And because of that, I didn't feel like I had anything particularly valuable to say about it. I thought I'd just capture some gameplay footage in case I ever needed it for a future video. Maybe one talking about the Nemesis system, a mechanic deeply beloved by many gamers and critics alike. I'll take this chance to talk about that system here as well. Not to mention, I also don't like to dunk on bad games too much. I want my videos to focus on the positive side of gaming, the fun side, but I don't shy away from constructive criticism whenever I deem it necessary. You can probably see where this is going. Unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy my time with Shadow of War. It left me disappointed, almost the entire way through. I thought Warner Brothers and Monolith Productions had an easy winner in their hands with a sequel to Shadow of Mordor. They didn't have to do much to improve the formula. They have a great IP on their hands, and the Nemesis system is a super interesting, unique mechanic. In this video, I want to explore where it all went wrong, at least in my personal opinion. But before analyzing the wrongdoings of the sequel, we have to talk about where it all started.
We are here.
I had a great time with Shadow of Mordor, even though a few of its design choices left me scratching my head. Honestly, I think I played it at the perfect moment. I just wrapped up all the modern Yakuza and Like a Dragon games, and I was craving something action-heavy but different in style. I even considered replaying the Batman Arkham games, comfort food basically, but while browsing through my backlog, I stumbled across Shadow of Mordor and thought, yeah, that's exactly what I need right now. And it absolutely was. Shadow of Mordor and the Middle-earth series in general is a lot like the Arkham games, and I mean that as a compliment. The free-flow combat is basically Arkham with an orc flavor. Big combo strings, counters and parries, executions, stuns, and a few tools to mix things up. Only in Shadow of Mordor, instead of batarangs, you've got a bow. Pretty much every encounter starts the same way, sneaking around, cleaning out the orc population, one stealth kill at a time, trying to not get spotted while you close in on your target. Eventually you get noticed, you drop the act, and you dive straight into the fight. For me, that look didn't get old, no matter how many fights I got myself into. But the big selling point, the thing everyone knows these games for, is the Nemesis system. You've definitely heard of it at least once, but just in case, the Nemesis system generates unique orc captains with their own names, personalities, strengths and weaknesses, and the best part, grudges. You kill them, they remember you, they kill you, they taunt you about it. Lower tier captains might fall to a simple stealth kill or a charged headshot, while stronger ones are immune to all these cheap tricks and instead have weird, oddly specific weaknesses. Stuff like terrified of fire or hates Caragors. You also probably heard that the Nemesis system is trademarked and patented by Warner Bros., which means other developers won't be able to copy this system for their games. I will go more into detail about the Nemesis system later on, because I have some thoughts about it. Story-wise, the game opens strong. Talion is living his best life with his wife and son, completely unaware that Sauron's army is basically on its way to ruin everything. The orcs raid his home, wipe out the town, and kill his family in front of him. As a final act, they kill Talion too, but instead of staying dead, he's bound to Celebrimbor, the smith who forged the Rings of Power. The two of them fuse together and go on a revenge tour across Middle-earth, hunting Sauron's forces and trying to put an end to the corruption spreading across the land. That's the general premise of the story, I don't remember a lot of details because, to be honest, I played Shadow of Mordor nearly a year ago, so it has been a while since then. Hopefully I won't make any Lord of the Rings nerds too mad, although I'm pretty sure the Middle-earth games have little to no connection with the actual lore of the Lord of the Rings books and movies. Even though I am a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings movies, I even watched and enjoyed the first 2 seasons of the Rings of Power TV series. The story of Shadow of Mordor didn't engross me at all. There's not too much of a story here really, and although I've already gone into light spoiler territory, I promise I won't spoil anything else, albeit there is not much to spoil. I'm going to be honest, I hated Talion as a character. Well, Talion and Celebrimbor, that is. He's boring, bland, and very simple. I usually don't care about the character that I play, but an interesting protagonist definitely improves the overall experience, especially in story-heavy games. Now, I'm not saying Shadow of Mordor is big in story, but still, it doesn't help its case. Talion reminds me a lot of Batman, which I also find kind of boring as a protagonist. He doesn't say much, and he is laser focused on his mission on getting revenge on Sauron and saving Middle-earth from his armies. He is extremely one-sided. The only feeling he expresses is a combination of sadness and anger. The weirdest thing for me was the campaign. You see, the entire campaign functions as a tutorial in a way. As you progress through the story and complete main missions, you will unlock new mechanics. For some of the mechanics, it makes sense to lock them behind the main mission later in the game. Things like riding Caragors or taking down Graugs must be taught to you by the game in a timely manner. However, I was under the impression that you could also turn orcs to your side, or as the game calls it, dominate orcs, making them fight for you. The orc domination mechanic appears extremely late into the game, near the end of it, and I found that design decision extremely odd. This was the best mechanic of the game. Why keep it for last? I mean, creating an army of your own to battle the forces of Sauron sounds so cool. I was under the impression that the domination mechanic would have played a bigger role in Shadow of Mordor. However, that is simply not the case. To be honest, I don't remember how the game marketed itself from back in the day, but I do remember the marketing of its sequel, Shadow of War, and the domination mechanic was showcased as a central mechanic for it. So it could be that I'm mixing things up, but still, why save the best mechanic for last? And indeed, in Shadow of War, creating an army is a central part of the game's pitch, but more on that later. Nonetheless, I was disappointed with Shadow of Mordor for not giving you access to the domination mechanic earlier in the game. Another thing that bugged me was enemy clarity. Plenty of modern games get this wrong nowadays, but Shadow of Mordor messes it up in a different way. Most games forget about enemy clarity because they instead focus too much on graphical fidelity and making their game as beautiful to look at as possible, so much so that they forget about readability. When there are a lot of optical distractions, it can be difficult to spot the enemy. That's why I turn down the graphics options too low when I'm playing a multiplayer game, but I digress. Back to the point, Shadow of Mordor has a different version of the problem. All the orcs kind of look the same. You see, orcs have different classes to make combat more interesting and add a bit of spice to it. There are the regular grunts, the shield bearers that cannot be attacked from the front, the berserkers that counter all of your attacks unless stunned first, the rangers that throw spears at you from a distance. I might be missing a couple of enemy types, but that's about all of them when it comes to orcs. Now, like I said, the problem is all orcs look alike. Grunt can be green or it can be brownish. It can have a normal body type, but sometimes they are larger, more muscular, or sometimes a bit smaller. The way you can definitely differentiate orcs based on their type is by looking at their weapon. However, that can be hard to do, especially in the heat of combat. The shield bearers stand out, sure. They're the ones with a big-ass shield, obviously. But for the other orc types, it's not that easy to tell them apart. Berserkers wield 2 axes, the grunts wield a one-handed sword, and the rangers throw spears. By default, you spam the attack button and at the same time you pay attention to the enemy's heads for the counter indication. As you progress through the game and start fighting bigger hordes of orcs, and you are introduced to more enemies, You need to slow down and pay attention to the battlefield, as you will need to prioritize targets. The two most common mistakes I made was not looking out for rangers and not using the bow as much as possible. In my defense, the game kind of disincentivizes you from using the bow too much, because the charge fills up very slowly. And without enough charge, you won't be able to slow down time as you are aiming with a bow, making you open and vulnerable to enemy attacks. Not to mention, you have to keep your mind and attention to the orc captains that you will be encountering in your journey, and sometimes you will need to battle multiple orc captains at once. It can get a bit overwhelming from time to time. I would have preferred to have the design of the orcs simplified and instead give more attention to the orc captains that make up the Nemesis system. The orcs also have some other characteristics based on their archetype. However, these are minor. Berserkers are slightly taller and more muscular, while the grunts are shorter and a bit fatter. The rangers are shorter and thinner compared to the grunts, but honestly, these are hard to spot when your full attention is on slaying as many orcs as possible, keeping an eye on the orc captain and trying not to die all at the same time. Don't get me wrong, I get it. It's orcs. It can't be too different since they are supposed to be pawns of the Dark Lord, but come on. This is a game and readability is super important for the moment-to-moment gameplay. This is a classic game design issue and it needed to be resolved. What I am glad for is the lack of enemy health bars and damage numbers. I'm happy Monolith Studios didn't go the quote-unquote RPG route, as it wouldn't have been necessary. Only the orc captains have a health bar above their head, which I'd argue is the only important information. The orc captains also have a level to reflect their power level. You could say that is a quote-unquote RPG mechanic, but the levels aren't indicative of much here. Every time an orc captain kills another orc captain or defeats you in combat, they will gain a level or two, earning them a higher position in the orc ranks and making them powerful. It's not 100% clear to me what the level up upgrades to the orcs' characteristics. To my understanding, it just increases their damage and health numbers slightly, and the level doesn't affect their weaknesses or strengths. The game also features 3 bosses, but unfortunately they dropped the ball with them. You are introduced to these characters at the start of the game. The main villain of the story is the Black Hand of Sauron, a weird choice for a name, but it is what it is. The other 2 lieutenants also have funny names. They are the Tower and the Hammer. I am pretty sure the is part of their name, like they go into a bar and the orcs up front are like, hey, it's my favorite buddy, the Tower. Barkeep, pour 1 beer for the Tower and put it on my tab. Funny names aside, these are basically Sauron's lieutenants, and they are in charge of his armies because Sauron hasn't returned to Middle-earth yet since his last defeat. Actually, the game calls them Sauron's Black Captains, which is another interesting naming choice, but to be fair, the Orc army is also called the Black Army in the Lord of the Rings. With that being said, I'm not going to call them that, but that doesn't really matter. The bosses look menacing and badass, however, the boss fights themselves are underwhelming. The boss fights are mostly about cutscenes and quick-time events, instead of interesting mechanics and a fun challenge. Good news is, the real bosses are the orc captains of the Nemesis system with their unique personalities, perks and their fun looks. Therefore, the lackluster bosses aren't a big detriment to Shadow of Mordor, but a detriment nonetheless. Shadow of Mordor uses a semi-open world system. The world is split into 2 mid-sized zones called Uldun and Nurnen. You start your journey at Udun. Udun is exactly how you imagine Middle-earth to look like after the orc invasion. It's industrial, gloomy, harsh, and simply feels hostile. The orcs have applied the scorched earth strategy and have destroyed everything in their path. You will barely find a standing tree in Udun. Although I understand why Udun is designed the way it is, it genuinely made me depressed roaming the area. I guess that means it was well designed? It's hard to explain, but I didn't like being in Udun, and at some point I thought of putting Shadow of Mordor down and stop playing it, until I was introduced to the second area, Nurnen. Nurnen is lush, greener and coastal. It's prettier on the eyes and it's a nice change coming from Udun. This is a beautiful, nature type of map, and I enjoyed my time here. There's not much to do in the world. The main feature, besides the main missions of course, is the Nemesis system and the orc encounters. There are also some side missions, I'd call them challenges because they give you a specific goal to achieve, and these challenges are split between the three weapons, the sword, the dagger and the bow. Each challenge follows the theme of the weapon. The sword is about action and combat, the dagger is about stealth, and the bow is about ranged attacks and abilities. There are also some additional side missions like rescue missions or hunting challenges. These are fun to do the first few times, but quickly get boring due to their repetitive nature. One last thing, I don't know if this was intentional, but in some fortresses, I swear enemies spawned endlessly. Basically, this forced me into clearing the fortress and the mission using stealth, since if I was spotted, I had two options. Either die or run away, since the orcs kept sending reinforcements to the meat grinder, and eventually they would get the better out of me. Maybe that was intended, and some areas are scripted to spawn an unlimited amount of orcs, or for some missions, but before I knew this, I got into a fight that lasted nearly 10 minutes until I gave in from exhaustion. It was a terrible experience, and the idea of forcing stealth like that didn't sit well with me. Overall, I enjoyed my time with Shadow of Mordor. It is a fun game, and what I would call a classic 7 out of 10. It's not great, but it's not bad either. Finished the main quest in about 14 hours and tried all of the side content at least once. I also played around with the Nemesis system, but not too much because, to be honest, the Nemesis system left me quite underwhelmed, which makes a great segue to the next segment of the video. You probably already know the Nemesis system. It was the main hook of the Middle-earth games. It is a system that procedurally generates orcs, their traits, personality, appearances, and then throws them into the general chaos of the world. Eventually you bump into them, or they bump into you. You see, the encounters themselves are part of the Nemesis system and its chaos. You can get ambushed by an orc captain while doing something else in the open world, or two orc captains might start fighting each other for whatever reason. The chaos caused by the Nemesis system reminds me of the emergent gameplay feature of the Far Cry series, just more structured and a bit more predictable. Before going further, let me explain the orc hierarchy. Grunts are the basic soldiers. No names, no traits, no personality. They're nobodies. Captains are the real heart of the system. They have strengths, weaknesses, unique dialogue, and a personality template. And finally, the war chiefs. These are the most powerful of the orcs. They are stationed in huge, well-guarded orc fortresses and are usually accompanied by a few orc captains. You can weaken them by killing off those captains ahead of time, or even better, ranking them and turning them into sleeper agents for your side. The fun thing is, an orc can get promoted from one rank to another. A grunt can become a captain after getting the killing blow on you, and also a captain can eventually be a war chief. The Nemesis system keeps track of which orcs matter to your personal story. That way, there's a personal narrative which will be unique to you. Although some orc captains and interactions are scripted, as they can be ported to the main story or serve as a tutorial, like a first experience to the system. Other behaviors that the Nemesis system keeps track of is when an orc escapes, who you humiliate. Humiliation is a mechanic where you decrease an orc captain's level, when an orc beats you in another fight, when an orc beats another orc in a fight, or when an orc interrupts you during a mission. Because of that tracking, orcs remember you, fall back to previous fights, and react with new dialogue or new traits. This is the emotional hook of the whole system. But to be completely honest, I felt indifferent about it. For me, the Nemesis system ended up being an endless generator of mini-stories, most of which I ignored, while only a few were memorable. People talk about it like it's groundbreaking, but functionally, it's not that different from a good story-based game. I mean, sure, the Nemesis system does react live based on your actions, but that's what any well-written RPG will do, so long as it has a branching story with choices that matter. Yes, it's procedural and technically impressive. Yes, the idea is amazing, but in practice, it's hit or miss. Perhaps the fault is on me. I had a difficult time connecting with most orc captains of the Nemesis system. Maybe that was because I knew most characters would be short-lived, therefore I didn't care much about them. Sure, it was cool to see an orc captain that managed to kill me get promoted and becoming more powerful and even harder to kill. Or when I fled from an orc captain because I was about to die, and then re-encountering that orc, and he starts taunting me, calling me a chicken for running away last time. Or even when I killed an orc, and he came back from the dead with stitches around his head because I decapitated him in our previous fight. These moments are precious, but they didn't stick for me and they didn't make me want to engage deeper with the system. Even the practical rewards, runes, gear, stronger orcs, didn't motivate me. I do appreciate the concept of procedurally generated mini-bosses, but I don't think the balance was right, and the sequel made this even worse. Sure, I understand that eventually powerful orc captains won't be able to be one-shot from stealth or from landing a headshot with your bow, but what do you do when they are basically immune to combo executions? They don't care for Karagors or other minor annoyances like flies, and they become enraged as you lower their health. And sure, they might have a weakness to fire or something minor, but what if there's no fire around you? A lot of the times, the fights with orc captains, and particularly the war chiefs, turned into drawn-out slugfests, just hitting a giant damage sponge with basic attacks until it finally dies. Every time that happened, it sucked the fun out of the system. Another minor annoyance of mine, the Nemesis board refills constantly. Every few in-game days, new captains spawn to replace the ones you eliminated. Personally, I wish the game would let you fully clear the board, wipe out every officer, weaken their fortress, and feel like you actually damaged the orc war machine, then later repopulate it. It still keeps the gamey loop, but it would feel more satisfying. They could still keep the choice of passing time and generate new orcs if the player wanted. This was a minor nitpick of mine, but it was worth mentioning. Shadow of War didn't bring much to the table, neither in innovation nor in improvements for the Nemesis system. Now, you can start an orc army of your own and take the war to the orcs, sieging their fortresses and taking them for your own. On paper, that's fun, but it forces you to interact with the system a lot. If you don't enjoy the core mechanic, the sequel becomes a grind. You can send spies into enemy ranks, have your captains assassinate war chiefs, skip sieges, get betrayed mid-battle, or be rescued from a killing blow by a loyal captain. These moments add flavor, but again, they only matter if the core system works for you. Shadow of War expanded enemy tribes and personalities. A good idea for captains, not so much for the random Grand Army. I'll get into that next. Of course, the Nemesis system is more dynamic, with more orc traits, more dialogue options, more strengths and weaknesses, more behavior patterns, more variability, and therefore a higher probability of creating fun memories. Shadow of War also does more in the way of rewards, and now captain levels matter more since they determine the level and rarity of gear drops. But again, it's hard to care about all that stuff if the Nemesis system itself doesn't hook you in the first place. Otherwise, the extra layers just turn into bloat. The Nemesis system is a cool design experiment, great in theory, but shaky in execution. I feel like a lot of people have romanticized the Nemesis system, but in reality, it's not really different to playing any game that follows a well-written story. Sure, your experience can be unique, but not in ways that truly matter. You might meet an orc captain playing his lute called Grak the Bard, and I might have the same exact experience, the same dialogue lines from another lute-playing orc captain called Grok the Bard. I truly don't believe two players would have that many different experiences. It's fun, but not the revolutionary system people make it out to be. And honestly, I wouldn't be sad if it never returned, especially since Warner Bros. Has trademarked the entire system. That's my take on the Nemesis system. Like I said, Shadow of Mordor introduced a cool and fun experiment, but Shadow of War didn't refine it as much as it should have, and in some ways, it bloated it. With a few modifications, better balance, and especially fewer damage sponge bosses, and less randomness in key moments, it could have been a fantastic evolution. But as it stands, Shadow of War just didn't iterate enough, which ties directly into my next point. Like I said at the start of the video, I assumed the sequel to Shadow of Mordor would be easy business for Monolith and Warner Bros. That's usually the case for those 7 out of 10 types of games. Take what worked, refine it, maybe cut what didn't. I said the same thing in my Ghost Recon Breakpoint analysis. By the way, if you haven't seen that video, and you're into deep dive design breakdowns like this one, give it a watch. And while you're at it, subscribe for more. With that out of the way, let me share my thoughts on Shadow of War.
I am now that I can finally see you.
I spent a lot of time talking about the prequel, Shadow of Mordor, because I wanted to set the stage. What worked, what needed refinement, and what potential the sequel had. I am not going to be talking about Shadow of War nearly as much. I only played it for a bit over 6 hours, and it didn't manage to keep me engaged. I wasn't interested in its story, and its mechanics didn't offer anything new to the gameplay loop. It didn't innovate enough, and I don't believe it improved on the existing mechanics and systems from Shadow of Mordor in a meaningful way. Let me explain. You still play as the same revenge-seeking duo, Talion and Celebrimbor. Only this time, they are more annoying than ever. Oh my god!
Get up, Ranger!
Who's that? Ooh, that was epic. Can I play as her instead? Turns out I can play as her. Nice. Celebrimbor forges yet another ring of power to try and counter Sauron's power, but early in the game you meet Shelob and she takes it away. Shelob is portrayed as this seductive spider-sorceress hybrid, a powerful being who's always speaking in riddles. Celebrimbor becomes obsessed with retrieving the ring, while Talion is instead obsessed with visions of the future. They also like talking about the Palantir all the time. Where is the Palantir? The Palantir is all that matters. We need to find the Palantir. I mean, come on, we get it. The dialogue is repetitive and honestly pretty cringe. These characters feel more robotic and one-note than ever. As a result, it was hard for me to follow the story.
Shelob! Minas Ithil is on the verge of collapse. We need the Palantir.
Of course.
The Palantir.
The Palantir, the Palantir.
Sight over your enemies.
Oh man, get a life.
Isn't it? Oh, I will grant you your vision. But how much are you willing to forfeit in the bargain?
It doesn't even say anything.
Your soul. There's hardly any left.
I must know.
I must know. Such a boring character. The game just throws you straight in. It assumes you played the prequel. There is barely a tutorial, and you are thrust into the world of Middle-earth with most of the first game's mechanics available to you from the start. I hate when sequels do this. It feels like they followed the exact opposite approach compared to Shadow of Mordor. Whereas in Shadow of Mordor the entire campaign was a tutorial, in Shadow of War there is no real tutorial. Both approaches are extreme and bad. Like I mentioned earlier, in Shadow of War you take the war to Sauron. You amass an orc army of your own and lay siege to fortresses, killing the enemy warchief, and capturing the stronghold in the name of the Bright Lord.
You serve the Bright Lord now.
Bright Lord, Dark Lord, same thing really.
Oh my
Sounds me
god.
ripping spines out, which I like to
Man,
do
what the
anyway,
hell is this
always a win.
dialogue?
A fine addition to our army.
Thanks,
No,
Bruce. From here
not
on out,
really.
I will be your shadow. No one gets to you without my say-so.
Don't worry about my enemies. They will all follow eventually.
I have to admit, the sieges are a very cool idea. It looks epic seeing your orcs trying to run the gate or scale the walls to get to the battlements. However, in practice, it wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. It is mainly a numbers game. If your orcs are higher level than the enemies, then it will most likely be an easy win for you. If the enemy orcs outlevel yours, you will most likely get defeated. Same as before, if you want to make the siege as easy as possible, you will have to grind the Nemesis system and take down most orc captains in the area beforehand, and that can get exhausting. I'll be honest, I only played through the first siege, which is heavily scripted. Since it will be your first siege, the game holds your hand. Also, the warchief is a familiar figure from Shadow of Mordor, which was nice to see. After that, I dropped the game. It got repetitive fast, and I didn't see anything new or worthwhile compared to the first game.
You will not claim him today.
What the f... Oh my god, yes. Now I don't have to play the game. Thank you. And he's back.
That is true.
Fortunately it is.
You killed me.
And yet you live.
Yep.
What is that like? To die and live again? Do you feel pain?
In this game, yeah, I do
What of the
suffer.
city? Of the Palantir?
The Nazgul have taken both. They belong to the Dark Lord now.
Then I have failed.
What if you keep fighting?
He wields the light of Galadriel. He can recover the ring.
Your rings are the cause of all this, Elf Lord.
You can see him.
I see him.
Who are you?
Someone interesting.
I'm the Blade of Galadriel.
For a change.
Since when does Galadriel work with assassins?
Great threats make for unlikely alliances. You know this better than most. Now tell me more about this ring.
No, not you as well. Please don't ask about the
Crafted
Palantir.
Sauron.
My main complaint in the first game was clarity in orc design. I struggled to differentiate enemy types during combat, and prioritizing targets was a mess. Somehow, they made it worse. Shadow of War introduces even more enemy types, and unfortunately, they still all look alike. I like the idea of more class archetypes and tribes that decide the orc's behavior for the orc captains of the Nemesis system, but I didn't want to see it for the enemy grunts. I found combat to be much more challenging because of that. And I have to mention one specific archetype that was particularly annoying to deal with, the Trapper. Trappers lay traps everywhere, obviously, but the hitboxes fell off. It felt like just being near a trap triggered it. Combine that with a frantic movement during fights, dodging around and jumping over orcs' heads, and it becomes a headache. Monolith also leaned into the RPG-style itemization. You can equip armor and weapons, each with levels and stats. These drop from captains with quality tied to their level. The runes are gone, now you slot gems into items for tiny bonuses. Honestly, the whole system introduces an unnecessary amount of micromanagement, which adds bloat and slows down the pace. The series didn't need random-based loot. The game keeps the semi-open world approach, but now with more regions that are smaller and visually repetitive. It's a strange design choice. Side content is also pretty thin. There are side missions, some Celebrimbor flashback challenges, and the usual collectibles. Most of them feel unremarkable. The random trinkets you pick up, maps, badges, little objects, don't tell you much about the world or the lore. They're just there. Shelob's memories are more interesting. They unlock cutscenes hinting at her past with Celebrimbor, but the puzzle element attached to them is pretty annoying. That storyline was the only part of the game's narrative that actually kept my interest, and even then, I didn't stick around to see it through. I might look it up on YouTube just out of curiosity. That said, they did get a couple of things right. The ability system is improved. Every unlocked ability can be augmented with a passive modifier, giving a little bit of player agency, though most options feel underwhelming. And I like the scouting mechanic that reveals points of interest, similar to the Farsight mechanic that Ubisoft used for Immortals Phoenix Rising. It's more interactive than simply climbing a tower and magically revealing the whole map. I don't want to pile on too much negativity. I didn't play the game for long, and I don't want to pretend I saw everything it has to offer. But I expected a refinement of the original formula, and instead I got more bloat piled on top of mechanics that weren't fully polished in the first place. The whole experience felt like a grindfest. Since I didn't enjoy the gameplay loop and the story didn't hook me either, the right thing to do was to put the game down. I can absolutely see why a lot of people like Shadow of War. If the core loop clicks for you, there's a ton to sink your teeth into. It just didn't click for me. After experiencing 2 games with the Nemesis system, I think I finally made peace with the fact that I just don't love it the way everyone else claims to. Shadow of Mordor introduced a cool idea, absolutely, a neat experiment. And Shadow of War, well, it mostly inflated it. More traits, more tribes, more chatter, more layers, but not more meaning. For me, it became this endless machine generating disposable mini-bosses that I'd forget about 5 minutes later, sprinkled with the occasional "hey, that was cool" moment. People talk about the Nemesis system like it changed the industry. Honestly, it didn't even meaningfully change its own sequel. And that's why I'm a bit cynical when I see the nostalgia around it. Unique stories? Sure. Technically? Emotionally meaningful stories? Not really. At least not for me. But that's exactly why I want to hear from you. Did the Nemesis system genuinely hook you? Did you actually form attachments or vendettas that stuck with you? Or did you, like me, feel like you were just spinning through randomized orcs until the game finally handed you one worth remembering? I'm curious to hear about your experiences and your opinion of the Nemesis system in the comments below. Because while I didn't fall in love with the Nemesis system, I'm willing to believe someone out there really did have the epic orc drama those video essay YouTubers keep preaching about. You missed. You missed again. You're not very good at this. Wait, did you see that? The arrow got like...
The future of Minas Ithil relies on your aim.
Oh, nice. Let me show you how it's done. You do it like this. Yeah.
This is not it. You're not going anywhere, General.
What? He's the traitor, you saw him.
No, you should not have come here.
I came for you.
What?
This is not what I wanted.
What is my guy doing?
For you, or for any of us.
There are things we don't.
Please tell me my guy knows that this guy is the traitor.
We can still fight.
You are your mother's daughter. Come. The reinforcements will be arriving soon.
And he's just standing there.
not going to do this alone. Gather your troops.
Will do. Ooh, just make sure you let me pop his heads off, won't ya?